During a recent clean out of the garage, I came across these monstrosities. These are kids' toys from New Zealand Burger King's equivalent of a Happy Meal.
At Burger King, you can meet the strangest characters, legends from The Lord of the Rings.
From around 2002 for the release of The Fellowship of the Ring. Looking into Gandalf's cold dead eyes gave me a brainwave. Could I repaint them and give them a little bit more life? Well, let's find out.
Experience the adventure at Burger King.
First off, these models were pretty dirty and dusty from the 2 decades of being in storage, so I gave them a little bath in some isopropyl alcohol and water, and just gave them a scrub with an old toothbrush. And once they were dry, I gave them a prime with Vallejo Surface Primer Black, and just crossed my fingers that this was going to stick, seeing as I'd never used this primer and this sort of plastic before. After that had dried, it seemed like they were good to go, so I gave them a quick zenithal highlight with some plain old white, just to give me a bit of a head start on the next stages and to just see where the shadows and highlights were going to be. And with Arwen, I went a little bit heavy with the white just because I knew this dress was going to be a brighter colour, but at this stage I hadn't decided what colour it was actually going to be. After these models were primed, I had a quick look around the internet for some reference photos to decide what colour to do these, and for Gandalf I landed on this Griff Charger Grey / Apothecary White combo, as this is going to give us a nice bluey grey. And personally, I love this Griff Charger Grey colour. For Arwen, this was a little bit different because she has a lot of different dresses in these movies. And after spending a fair amount of time looking at pictures of Liv Tyler for purely research purposes, I decided that this dress was the closest match, mainly due to the cut. But to warm the colour up a bit, I used this Skeleton Horde contrast paint mixed with about 50-50 water. This was just to give it a nice creamy tone. And then brightened it up a bit with a little bit of white ink, which gave us a nice off-white tone. And they're already starting to look a little bit more interesting, just with a bit more contrast and shading. I decided Gandalf needed a little bit more contrast, so I hit him with a dry brush of these 2 cold greys. This is Rust Grey and Fenrisian Grey from Citadel. And this is just going to give us a little bit more texture on that rough spun cloak of his. Now because I struggle painting realistic faces, I decided to get this out of the way. So I'm going to start with this Vallejo Brown Rose, which is my go-to generic base skin tone for painting light to medium skin. And this is going to go over all of the exposed areas, including the hands and chest. And so I don't mess up the skin tone later, I'm going to paint the hair and any surrounding areas around the face. And this is Rhinox Hide for Arwen's hair, and very carefully with this exhaust manifold for the Light of the Even Star around Arwen's neck. And then I started blocking in any of the shaded areas of the skin using this Vallejo Black Red. And I like to do this in the eye sockets, around the nose and under the chin, any sort of shaded areas. And it's going to look pretty disjointed at the moment, but we're going to come back and clean these up with that original brown rose colour. And at this point I like to block in the whites of the eyes. This is because if we make any mistakes we can fix it up easily, without having to match any of the colours or shades that we're going to add later. And now back with the Vallejo Brown Rose, we're going to start blending in these darker areas. And I'm just using a little bit of glaze medium for this. You can just use water, but if you have some of this glaze medium on hand, you might as well use it. And this is going to pretty much delete most of that black red that we did before, leaving just the darkest areas. This is going to give us a nice head start for doing our highlights, and revealing some of Gandalf's wrinkles. And before we move on to the extreme highlights, I'm going to be filling in these extra details, including Gandalf's staff, which is with Dryad Bark, and the leather on his belt, which is with Mournfang Brown. And I'll be washing all the parts together and then highlighting them separately. That way I don't have to change brushes. And back to the face, and a quick Google of what Ian McKellen's eye colour is. It turns out he has lovely icy blue eyes, so I'm going to use this Fenrisian Grey again just to give us that nice blue. And this is always a heart-stopping moment for me, so I'm using the smallest brush in my arsenal to accomplish this. And you only need the tiniest dot to give the impression of colour. And now it's on to highlighting the skin, and firstly I'm just going to give it a wash with this Reichland Flesh shade. And this is going to pull into all the recesses and give us a nice bit of definition. And this is usually my favourite part of painting models. It's when everything really starts to pop. And now to get some nice detail on this face, I'm going to mix up 4 colours on my palette, starting with the black red, followed by brown rose, which was our first skin colour, followed by Cadian flesh tone by Citadel, and then Kislev flesh for our last highlight. And just a small drop of glaze medium just to help them mix together. And starting with the darkest colour, we slowly make our way through to the highlights. The darker colours generally sit in the recesses, so around the nose, around the eyes, underneath the neck and places like that. And as we work up to the brighter colours, we move along to the nose, the forehead and the cheekbones. A really good way to practice painting faces is by buying busts. There's some really talented sculptors out there that sell busts of celebrities. Now, celebrities are a good thing to do because there's lots of source images available online, so you can sort of match your colours. And after painting these, I've decided I need a little bit more training, so I've ordered a couple for myself. Also, don't be afraid to go back and forth when you're painting things like this. Unless you're an expert, you're probably going to make a little mistake here and there, which is absolutely fine because that gives you even more practice. I'm pretty happy with these faces have turned out, so I'm going to start washing the rest of the details in this model, starting with Arwen's hair, which I'm washing with Agrak's Earthshade, which is just a brown wash, which I'm also going to use on Gandalf's staff and his leather belt. And to add some details to Gandalf's beard, I'm going to start by washing it in Drakenhof Nightshade, which is a blue wash, followed by a highlight of Dawnstone. And I'm just going to pick out all the raised areas of hair, and also making some really thin lines on the moustache, just to make it a bit more defined. And here we reach our journey's end. These models were a lot of fun to paint, and I'm glad they've escaped the darkness of the deep dark box that's in my garage. And who knows what else I'll pull out of there eventually. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I plan to be making a lot more content very soon. And if you did enjoy, please like and subscribe, as it's going to help the channel grow. And if you have any other ideas for repaints, let me know in the comments below. Farewell wherever you fare, till your Eries receive you at your journey's end.